the IATF 16949 podcast, where we talk about all things automotive. Find us on our channel at youtube.com/IATF 16949 auditing, or visit our website at www.iatfglobaloversight.org. This is the IATF 16949 podcast.
Welcome to this first IATF 16949 podcast. I'm Paul Hardiman, subject matter expert for SMMT and IAOB. In this episode, we'll be talking to Devon Gage, Program Manager at the IAOB, and Noel Keeley, IATF Oversight Manager at Society of Motor Manufacturers and Traders, about requirements related to the IATF scheme. We'll also be answering some questions from our YouTube channel comments related to this subject. We hope you enjoy this podcast. So Devon, can you tell us a little bit about the purpose of starting these podcasts?
Yeah, so thanks, Paul. The purpose of this, one, everyone is enjoying the YouTube videos that we have published now for almost 3 or 4 years. And there's a lot of questions. We want to answer those questions as well as just bring people general knowledge about what's going on at the IATF level. If there's any new plans on the future, keep people informed in a kind of informal way as they're traveling wherever they're going to. We're at a global scheme, so trying to have like a conference or anything like that is very difficult, and we thought that this would be the best way to reach as many people as possible.
Yeah, no, great. Now, anything you want to add to that?
Well, no, I think just to reiterate, it's a kind of hopefully an informal way of us talking about the scheme without necessarily the pressure of having to record a video at the same time. So as Devon said, the aim is to try and just be an informal platform to talk through what's happening at IATF and hopefully to respond to questions that we get from the videos, but also hopefully just to provide a bit more information about what's happening from an IATF perspective.
Yeah, and I certainly think it's great that we're getting so much interest and so many questions from the YouTube auditing channel. And I think these monthly podcasts are going to give us the opportunity to try and answer as many of those questions as we can. So I think that's really the way that we can start it, that we have a number of questions that the viewers of the channel have posted against particular videos. So if it's okay with you guys, I think what we'll do is kick off and I will ask some of those questions and you can try and give some insight, give some answers to those. So Devon, one question is that I think it's a tremendous step forward that IATF are now publishing data on non-conformities that are raised in IATF audits under the statistics tab of the IATF Global Oversight website. The question that somebody has raised is there any plan to break down that data any further? For example, have non-conformities raised per region or number of non-conformities raised by country?
Right, so currently, we have our global oversight website, and then we have the one that's translated in Chinese, and we have that for that region. But as far as breaking it down to all regions across the globe, currently we're not looking at doing that. We're still, obviously, data privacy is one of the hot topics right now, and we want to make sure that any data that we have remains private and we follow all the applicable laws across all the organizations over the world.
Yeah, no, I think that's a fair comment. So I guess it's watch this space on that one. But at the moment, I think it's a great step forward publishing the data on a global basis.
Yeah, one of the questions I had recently on the NC data was it would be great to see the numbers. At the moment, we show the percentage by IATF clause, and there was a kind of request that I picked up around would it be possible to show the numbers. Now, unfortunately, I don't know the answer to that, but I thought it was a good question, and we will follow up on that.
Yeah, good. Second question for you now then. One of the viewers actually expressed that sometimes on the IATF website, the translations of the SIs and the FAQs, either for the standard itself or for the rules, is not always necessarily at the same level. What are your views on this, and what is IATF as a group trying to do to improve the translation process?
Yeah, no, it's a valid question, and I think probably since that was posted, we've seen some improvement in getting everything published consistently, the FAQs and the sanctioned interpretations. There's no doubt it's a bit complicated, this, because we have around 14 languages that everything needs to get translated into. Some of the eagle-eyed viewers stroke listeners will have maybe noticed there's a bit of small print on the Global Oversight website that now kind of reinforces that the English language version kind of becomes the default until the other languages are published. So there's a little bit of small print just under the FAQs and the SIs that reinforce that message. But we do our best across the global oversight to ensure that translations do get published in a timely way. And it is one of those topics that we do keep going back to. Again, Devin, I don't know if you want to chip in on that.
No, you covered it, Niall. As you said, we tried, but obviously if it's not available, always reference the English. And you can always contact your relevant oversight office if you're a certification body or auditor, or if you're a stakeholder, contact your CB and see if you can find when it'll be released in language.
Yeah.
Good. Devon, the next question, and it starts with a compliment actually, that one person posted that they think that the CARA, the Common Audit Report application, which obviously all third-party IATFs will be familiar with, auditors will be familiar with, but also any IATF certified client will be seeing the CARA reports and being asked to put their corrective actions in through the CARA format. So I think generally the community is saying that CARA has been a success. The question is there any plans to extend the concept of CARA to things like audit planning?
Yeah, so obviously that's something we're glad, one, that we're getting compliments. We knew that the CARA application was going to be, once rolled out, extremely beneficial to all stakeholders. But yes, we were looking at putting a work group together to kind of make that process standard. The more standard process we can have, it just helps our scheme in general.
Yeah, and Niall, I think one of the points raised was that there is a big difference in the format of audit plans that are produced by the different third-party certification bodies. Yeah, have you any comments about that?
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think Devin's right, Paul, that we are looking at the feasibility, I would say, is probably the way to describe it, of formalising audit planning within CARA. It's, we all know it's such an important part of the audit to undertake that sort of planning activity before the audit, and we've got 39 IATF recognised certification bodies, and they'll all have their own approach to audit planning, so that the audit plans will all look a bit different, etc. So it is definitely something off the back of the launch of CARA that we are looking at, and a fair bit of work has been done, but unfortunately at this point I can't kind of say whether it's going to go forward, but it's definitely a subject that is being discussed, and yeah, I hope that something might happen, but at the moment I can't say anything concrete.
Yeah, and I think it would benefit where there are organisations that have multiple sites around the world that are using different certification bodies to see a standardised approach, just like we're seeing through CARA.
Yeah.
So I guess viewers and listeners, then it's watch this space.
Yeah.
And if there are any developments, we can update you on that in future podcast. So now the next question relates to how many third-party qualified auditors are there around the world? And in particular, the question was related to how many of those auditors are in Europe. And then the second part of the question is, do you and Devon, do you think there are enough IATF auditors to service the 87 or 88,000 certified IATF clients?
That is a great question. So I can tell you kind of in total, there's around about 3,300 certified auditors globally. And we know how those auditors are distributed globally. It's always a bit difficult, this, because I would say, rely on the certification bodies to ensure they have sufficient resources to manage their clients. That's not really the job of the IATF. Our role in this is to make sure that the auditors that are put forward for training go through a robust training and assessment process, and we like to think we do that. But yeah, difficult to answer whether there are enough auditors. I don't know. Yeah, Devin, I don't know. Have you got a...
Yeah, no, like you said, Niall, we rely on our certification bodies. They know their business, right? They know how many auditors it's going to take to service the clients that they have. Now, we do look at the scheme and identify maybe if there's power auditors or, the people that are auditing plus 275 days a year, and you kind of wonder maybe they need a few more resources in that region. But really, we let our certification bodies design or figure out how many auditors they need, because that's their business. They know it better than we do. So.
Yeah, and just back to Europe now, I don't expect you to quote the absolute number, but out of that 3,200 auditors, approximately how many of those will be in Europe?
So roughly speaking, 25% of those auditors will be located, based in Europe.
Yeah.
Obviously, the highest percentage of auditors we see in Asia, but that follows the highest sort of percentage of certified sites. So I think the number of auditors reflects the number of certificates, let's say, of certified sites around the globe.
Yeah, and I guess, on a monthly or annual basis, there are auditors that are leaving the scheme, maybe retiring. Yeah. But I know, and I'm sure you know, that there are a lot of new auditors being qualified that are coming into the process. So I think in any scheme like this, there's always going to be a churn of auditors. But certainly the feedback I get is, at the moment, there isn't a global shortage of auditors, but there may be a shortage in particular regions of the world.
Yeah, and anyone that's interested in new auditor training, there is a link from the Global Oversight website, which will provide you with resources around who does the training, where it's done, which languages it's in, and you can make contact with the training providers through the IATF Global Oversight website.
Yeah, no, great. No, I think that certainly answers that listener's question. Devon, I put myself in the context of this then. If I was a third-party IATF 16949 auditor, I've been through the auditor qualification process in the ADP, and I want to either change certification bodies, or I want to get multiple sponsorship with more than one certification body. Is that allowed under the scheme?
Yeah, so the IATF, as long as you want to go to any of our contracted certification bodies, you can request it through what's called the ADP. It's the Auditor Development Process. It's a platform out there that third-party auditors have access to. You can request it any of the 39 IATF certified or contracted certification bodies. However, it really comes down to the specific contract the certification body and the auditor have together. So always check with your contracted CB prior to requesting other certification bodies.
Yeah, I know there are some certification bodies that they have the requirement that their auditors, even if they're subcontract, don't work for multiple certification bodies. So that's something I guess the auditors have to take into account in trying to work with different certification bodies. But I think what you're saying is there's no restriction in the rules for auditors working for multiple certification bodies, or indeed changing certification bodies during their period of qualification. Yeah.
Paul, it is worth just on that subject. I know certainly in China, auditors can only work for one certification body, and like Devin said, CBs themselves might have their own rules around whether they use associate resources or not. So it's on a kind of it depends, I suppose, is the answer. But as Devin says, the ADP manages the auditor sponsorships, and an auditor can request additional sponsorships through the ADP if that's appropriate.
And Niall, you do bring up a good point that you have to check with your local government with their laws and regulations as well as your certification body.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. No, that I've learned that. Then that's useful to know. No, the next question, we're getting a lot of compliments from the listeners and the viewers of the YouTube channel. One is saying that they really like now that IATF is formally publishing the certificate numbers and showing the breakdown of the certificate numbers around the world. But the question is there any similar information published on ISO 9001 certificates and the global distribution of those, and whether the numbers of ISO certificates are going up or whether they're going down?
Yeah, that is a good question, and it's in a way it's difficult for us, Paul. You might have a view on this. We know from an IATF point of view at the last count we were about 88,000 certificates globally, which puts IATF as what I would call a fairly large certification scheme, but it would be dwarfed by ISO 9001. I think we're probably talking about 1 million organisations or more. Yeah, so by far and away the biggest quality management system standard. So IATF in relation to that is very small. But to be honest, I don't know of a global central repository that gives that information. I know national accreditation bodies are publishing some certificate information for standards like ISO 9001, but I don't know of a sort of central global figure.
Yeah, and I think that the other good thing that people like, I think, is the validity check that you can do for IATF certificates at the IATF Global Oversight website. From my understanding, I don't think there is an equivalent that there is for ISO 9001 where you can go and globally check that a certificate does hold a valid accreditation. So that is, I think, managed locally, I think.
Yeah, but that is a great point, and you've reminded me. We have that. You'll have seen anyone that uses the certificate validity checker. This is for IATF certified sites. That has recently been enhanced, let's say. So the search criteria has been expanded. We've got within the IATF scheme something called a unique site identifier. So every location, every certificate has a unique number attached to it. So that can be used, or the certificate number, or the company name can be used. And you get a more granular response from the check. So not only are you seeing yes or no, but you're also seeing, well, is it a suspended certificate? Is it an expired certificate? Is it a withdrawn certificate? So you get some good information via that portal. So a little advert for the validity check from the Global Oversight website.
That's certainly a lot more useful, I think, now. I think it used to be you could really only search on the IATF certificate number, but you couldn't search by the company name, for example, or the country. So no, that I agree. I think is a big enhancement. That if somebody wants to check, is it a kosher IATF certificate? Is it a valid certificate? That you can do that from the IATF Global Oversight website. So no, that's great.
Yeah, and Paul and Niall, I think we might want to point out here, the equivalent for ISO 9001 does not exist. Obviously, there was IAF search, which you can put search a company or a certificate number, and if it's in that database, it will return the results, but that database is not mandatory. So there's a lot of certificates that are not in there, but it could be, in some cases, a good tool for people to use.
Yeah, and I think, for example, some accreditation bodies like UCAS, they do for their certification bodies, for a UCAS accredited certificate, you can go to the UCAS website and check validity of certificates. So there are, but I think I agree with you, Devon, there isn't one global database for accredited ISO 9001 certificates. And to be honest, I don't think there ever will be, because it would be a hell of a task to keep that up to date. But no, good question by the viewer on that one. Okay. Devon, the next question is again a bit about non-conformities. That if we take the IATF requirement, for example, 8.5.1.1, which relates to control plan, and that requirement is almost a full page requirement broken down into sub-elements like A, B, C, and D. The question is, when we provide the non-conformity data, could we not only identify the top 10 clauses, but could we break down into the sub-clauses of some of these bigger clauses? What do you think?
Yeah. Currently, we don't have the ability to do that. Within what we call the IATF database, where all the certificate information, audit information is stored, we just go to the clause number. We don't go to the alphabet. So you would not see A, B, C, or D there. You would only see the top level, the 8.5.1.1.
Yeah, because the auditors can only put that level of detail, can't they, in CARA, and then from the database. And I guess the argument not to go down to the sub-elements is non-conformities are against a system or a process issue. They're not just because a shell requirement in 8.5.1.1b has not been met. The system problem would be some aspect of the control plans are not effectively developed, or the control plans are not effectively implemented.
Yeah, and in a way, Paul, we have had these discussions about, well, should we go into a greater detail of level within the database? But exactly to your point, really the system problem is what we're trying to identify to the organisation so that they can address the issue around problem solving rather than around a specific part of problem solving.
Yeah, good. The next question that was posted then, Niall, is about, can an IATF OEM authorised service provider get an IATF certification?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. It's a little bit unclear about what an OEM authorised service provider is. It sounds like it could be a dealer or
a service centre maybe,
or service centre. But yeah, we always have to go back to the eligibility of value added manufacturing, i.e., making a tangible product that gets integrated into the vehicle. So maintaining the vehicle or selling the vehicle wouldn't meet that eligibility criteria. So unfortunately, unless they're doing value-added manufacturing, then no, they wouldn't be eligible for IATF certification.
Right. Okay. No, that's clear. And again, that is defined not in the IATF standard, I guess. That is more linked back to the IATF rules around the eligibility for IATF.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I guess I think many of the viewers and listeners will be aware that the IATF rules are currently going through a revision process. I guess that could be clarified or changed possibly in Rule 6 edition.
Yes, and I think it could. I think what will happen in Rule 6 edition is there will be a clarification about what's eligible and maybe what isn't eligible. We've ended up with, I think with Rules 5, we've added on things to the eligibility that over time have been identified and deemed to be integrated into the vehicle, but have been shown as kind of a list of things that are also included. I'm hoping with Rule 6 that it will be a very clear definition of what is in and what is excluded from certification.
No, I think that will be helpful, and it will probably reduce the number of questions you guys get on a daily basis about eligibility. So I think if we can clarify that would be great. And another final general question, Devon, is about consultants that are working and supporting clients with either implementation of IATF 16949 or helping clients maintain their certification. And is there any plan for IATF to have any recognized qualification process for consultants?
So no, not currently. Obviously, the IATF, we concentrate on third-party certification. We have a very rigorous process for our auditors. But to keep the integrity of the scheme, we draw a very separate line from auditing versus consulting. Now, yes, we know that there are many companies out there that do need help and need these consultants, but it's the responsibility of those organizations to, in fact, vet and make sure that the consultant company they go with is adequate for their needs.
Yeah, because I guess, Niall, under the IATF and ISO 9001 requirements, the organization has to look at a consultant as an external provider and ensure they're competent.
Yeah. And there's no expectation or requirement or need for organizations to use consultants in the way they kind of manage their QMS, their quality management system. But you're right, Paul, if they are using external resource, let's say, then that should be covered under the control of externally provided services.
Yeah, and do the due diligence. An organization should do the due diligence if they plan to use a consultant.
Yeah.
Maybe to check their track record, any references. But there is no, and from what I hear from you guys, there is no plan to have any form of certification scheme for consultants. Yeah,
No, and what it's worth saying just while we talk about the word consultants, the IATF are very clear about the involvement of consultants during any third-party audits. In other words, it's not acceptable for a consultant to be involved or to participate in any way, shape or form in a third-party audit. So from IATF's point of view, if an organisation chooses to use a consultant, that's okay. But the QMS must be owned, managed, understood by the organisation. They can't rely on a consultant to kind of explain what's happening. That wouldn't be great.
Thank you for listening to this episode. If you enjoyed it, follow us or visit our YouTube channel to watch more content from us at IATF 16949 Auditing. And don't forget, if you have any questions, please feel free to leave them in the comments of the relevant video.
The IATF 16949 podcast, where we talk about all things automotive. Find us on our channel at youtube.com/IATF 16949 auditing or visit our website at www.iatfglobaloversight.org. This is the IATF 16949 podcast.